The ballroom was silent as a tomb. 500 people. Politicians, businessmen, organized crime bosses, all frozen as they watched the scene unfold. Lorenzo Valenti, the most dangerous man in Boston, stood on the dance floor, jaw clenched, vein throbbing in his temple. He had just refused to dance with me. Big mistake. I was Catalina Moretti, and nobody, absolutely nobody, refused a Moretti publicly and lived to tell the tale. "Dance with me now," I repeated, my voice low but laden with authority that made even his guards recoil. "Don't make me lose my temper." For 3 eternal heartbeats, he just stared at me, icy blue eyes meeting my determined brown ones. Everyone in the room held their breath. Lorenzo Valenti didn't bow to anyone. He was known for breaking men who challenged his authority. Then, slowly, incredibly, he extended his hand. "A dance, Miss Moretti, but only because you asked so, politely." The sarcasm in his voice was sharp, but he was bowing, in front of everyone, for me. And as his hand found my waist and we began to waltz under thousands of curious eyes, I realized this dangerous man had just shown me a respect he had never given to anyone, and I was about to find out why. "Hello, dear souls. Thank you so much for being here and supporting this channel. Your presence means the world to me. If you're new here or haven't subscribed yet, click the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Comment below where you're listening from. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. To understand how we got to that point, me commanding Lorenzo Valenti in front of the entire Boston criminal elite, I need to go back 6 months, to my father's funeral, where it all began. Antonio Moretti died as he lived, violently, shot 3 times in the chest in a North End alley, left to bleed out while his killers disappeared into the Boston night. The police called it a robbery gone wrong. Everyone in the family knew better. My father was Don of the Moretti family, one of the 5 families that controlled Boston, and Dons don't die in random robberies. I was 25 when I received the call. I was in my Manhattan apartment, working as an assistant curator at the Metropolitan Museum, living the life my father always wanted for me, clean, legitimate, far from the criminal world he inhabited. "Cat," my mother sobbed on the phone, using my childhood nickname. "Your father, he's gone." I took the first train to Boston. I arrived to find our North End home filled with mourners, genuine and fake, mixed together, impossible to distinguish. Uncles, cousins, family soldiers, all with appropriate expressions of grief, but in their eyes, I saw calculation, opportunity, because with my father dead and no male heir to inherit, the Moretti family was vulnerable. "Catalina," my Uncle Dominic intercepted me at the entrance. "We need to talk about the future of the family. My father isn't even buried yet, Uncle Dom, and that's exactly why we need to talk. There's a power vacuum. Other families will try to swallow us up if we don't act fast." He guided me to my father's office, now his, I suppose. "You're smart, Cat. You've always been the smartest of us all, so you'll understand when I say, you need to get married." I blinked. "Excuse me?" "To marry. Someone strong. Someone with enough power to protect the family." You're thinking of selling me as a bargaining chip." Rage boiled through my shock. Literally on the day of my father's funeral. "I'm thinking about survival." Dominic leaned forward. "Do you think the Valenti, the Ricci, the DeLuca families are just going to let us continue operating as before? Your father was respected, feared. But me? I'm seen as weak. And you're seen as—" He hesitated. "As a woman. As someone incapable." I finished bitterly. "Exactly. So you marry someone strong. Someone whose name carries weight. And the family survives under new leadership. And who do you have in mind? Which lucky person will win the prize from a reluctant Moretti?" "Lorenzo Valenti." The name hit me like a physical punch. Lorenzo Valenti, youngest son of the late Don Valenti, now head of the Valenti family after his older brother mysteriously died 3 years ago. Known for being brutal, calculating, completely merciless. "You're crazy." Lorenzo Valenti hated my father. He respected his father. There's a difference. And more importantly, he's powerful enough to protect our family from being absorbed by rivals. Dominic pulled out documents. "I've already made preliminary contact. He's interested." "Of course it is. Marrying a Moretti gives him control over our territory without having to fight for it." I looked at my uncle with growing disgust. "You're handing over Dad's empire on a silver platter. I'm saving him from complete extinction." Dominic slammed his fist on the table. "You have a choice, Catalina. Marry Valenti and retain some influence, some power, or refuse and watch as your family falls apart in a civil war between factions vying for control. This is not a choice. It's blackmail. It's true. He stood up. You have until the end of the week to decide. After that, I'll make deals without your approval. I left the office, trembling with rage. My mother met me in the hallway, her face pale. You heard. Yes. And did you know? Dominic mentioned it. Honey, I know it's not fair. Isn't it fair? Mom, I'm being sold like cattle. My voice rose despite my efforts to control it. Dad's barely cold and they're already using me as a bargaining chip. Your father would have understood. In our world, sometimes survival requires sacrifices. She touched my face. But Kat, Lorenzo Valenti isn't a monster. Cruel, yes. Dangerous, absolutely. But honorable in his own way. And most importantly, he will respect you in ways that other men wouldn't. How do you know? Because I knew him. Once, years ago, in negotiations with your father, Lorenzo defended his own mother's position when other men would have dismissed it. He values strength and intelligence, and you, my daughter, have both in abundance. Even so, I don't want to marry a stranger for political convenience. Nobody wants to, but sometimes it's what we do to protect those we love. She kissed my forehead. Think about it, but don't take too long. Dominic wasn't exaggerating about the urgency. The funeral took place 2 days later, a traditional Catholic ceremony, followed by a procession through North End, then burial in the cemetery where 3 generations of Morettis rested. I maintained my composure throughout it all, the mass, the endless condolences. The moment my father's coffin was lowered into the ground, only when I was finally alone in the car driving home did I break down. Miss Moretti? The driver, Tony, one of my father's loyal men, watched me in the rearview mirror. Will you be all right? I don't know, Tony. Honestly, I don't know. Your father was a great man. Just loyal. He protected those under his command. He paused. And he loved you more than anything in this world. He spoke of you constantly, of how proud he was that you had left, that you had built a life away from all of this. Then he wouldn't have wanted me to come back. He wouldn't have wanted me to sacrifice myself to save the family. I don't know what he would have wanted, but I know what he would have done. Tony met my gaze through the mirror. He would have fought with everything he had to protect those he loved, even if it meant making impossible choices. The words stayed with me. That night, lying in my childhood bed in the room that hadn't changed since I went to college, I finally made a decision. I wasn't going to marry Lorenzo Valenti blindly, but I was going to get to know him, evaluate him, and if he proved to be the man my mother described, I would consider the arrangement. I called Dominic this morning. Arrange a meeting. I want to meet Lorenzo Valenti before making any decision. Smart. He sounded relieved. I'll arrange it for the weekend. Dinner, neutral territory, just the 2 of you. And Dominic? If he's rude, if he's disrespectful in any way, the deal is off. I don't care about the consequences. Understood. The restaurant Dominic chose was discreet. A family-owned Italian establishment in Back Bay, known for valuing privacy. I arrived 10 minutes early, wearing a simple black dress and my grandmother's pearls, armor of class and composure. Lorenzo Valenti arrived right on time. I immediately saw why men feared him. Tall, maybe 6 feet 3 inches, with broad shoulders from spending time at the gym, dark hair combed back, an impeccably trimmed beard framing a strong jaw. He wore a suit that probably cost more than the monthly rent for my Manhattan apartment. But it was his eyes that truly caught the eye. Pale blue, almost icy, assessing everything with the precision of a predator calculating its prey. Miss Moretti. His voice was deep, laden with a slight Italian accent that his years in Boston hadn't completely erased. Thank you for agreeing to meet me. Mr. Valenti. I accepted his outstretched hand. The handshake was firm but not crushing. Respectful. Shall we sit down? Dinner started tensely. We ordered, made small talk about the food, the restaurant, Boston in general. But then Lorenzo put down his fork and looked directly at me. Let's skip the preliminaries. You don't want to be here. I'm not exactly enthusiastic about arranged marriages, but we both understand the need. Your frankness surprised me. Continue. Your family needs protection. My family could use a strategic alliance. Marriage solves both problems. He picked up some wine. But I'm no fool, Miss Moretti. I know you're being forced into this. And honestly, I respect that you're here making your own assessment instead of just accepting it. And what's your opinion of me? You're intelligent. A curator at the Met, with a degree in art history from Yale. Strong. You returned to Boston when your father died, even knowing his world isn't safe. And loyal. You're considering this marriage not for yourself, but to protect your family. He leaned forward. Those are qualities I value, that I respect. Respect is not love. No, but it's a better foundation than most marriages in our world have. Her expression softened slightly. Catalina. May I call you Catalina? Cat. Only my family calls me Catalina. Cat, then. I'm not going to lie and say I'll love you from the first moment, but I can promise respect, protection, and genuine partnership. It won't just be my name protecting your family. It will be your intelligence and my strength working together. What if I refuse? What if I decide it's not worth the sacrifice? Then I will respect your decision. I won't force you. But, he paused. Catalina, Cat, we both know what will happen. Your family will be torn apart. Dominic doesn't have the strength to maintain order, and you'll spend the rest of your life wondering if you could have prevented it. It was manipulation, but also brutal truth. I need time to think. You have a week. After that, your family situation could deteriorate beyond the point where even I can protect them. He gestured to the waiter, paying the bill. But Cat, whatever your decision, you have my respect. Few people have the courage to look directly into a future they fear and make a decision anyway. He left, leaving me alone with my thoughts and half a bottle of Chianti, and I realized what I hated was that he was right. About everything. I spent the following week investigating Lorenzo Valenti. I called contacts in Manhattan, people who knew the criminal underworld. The story that emerged was complicated. Yes, he was brutal with enemies. Yes, he had a reputation for violence when crossed. But he was also known for treating those under his protection well, for keeping his word, for having an old-fashioned code of honor that most modern criminals had discarded. He's old school, one of my contacts said. The kind who values loyalty above all else, and he never ever breaks his word once he's given it. At the end of the week, I made a decision. I called Dominic. Organize. I'm going to accept Valenti's offer. Are you sure, Kat? No, but I'll do it anyway. The engagement was announced a week later, discreetly, through appropriate channels. Nothing ostentatious, just word passing through the 5 families that Moretti and Valenti were uniting through marriage. Reactions were mixed. Some saw it as a clever move, others as Moretti, surrendering to Valenti. Let them think what they want, my mother told me as we planned a small ceremony. The truth will emerge in time. The wedding was scheduled for 3 months later, enough time to plan properly, but not so long that enemies could exploit a power vacuum. And in those 3 months, Lorenzo and I met periodically, dinners, social events, building the familiarity that marriage would require. You need to know, Lorenzo said during one of those dinners, that I don't expect instant love, or even eventual love, but I do expect mutual respect, loyalty, and honesty, and I expect the same. Plus one more thing, which, may he never treat me as property. May he never discard me as insignificant because I am a woman. May he see me as a genuine partner, not just a trophy wife. I met his eyes. Because Lorenzo, I may not have freely chosen this marriage, but I choose how I will exist within it, and I will not be a silent shadow. He studied my face, then smiled, the first genuine expression I'd seen from him. I wouldn't expect less, and honestly, a wife who challenges me interests me much more than one who merely obeys. The wedding itself was beautiful in its simplicity. A Catholic ceremony in a small church in North End, followed by a reception for about 100 people. Family, close allies, key people. I wore my grandmother's wedding dress, altered to fit. Lorenzo wore a traditional dark suit, and when the priest pronounced us husband and wife, the kiss we shared was chaste but respectful, the beginning of something, still uncertain of what it would become. Our honeymoon was in Italy, 2 weeks at the Valenti family estate in Tuscany. It was there that we truly began to get to know each other. No pressure from our families, no prying eyes, just the two of us navigating this new reality. Do you regret it? Lorenzo asked one night while we were drinking wine on the terrace overlooking the vineyards. Ask me again in a year. Right now I'm processing. Fair enough. He filled my glass. For what it's worth, Kat, I'll do everything I can to make sure you don't regret it. I can't promise a fairy tale, but I can promise respect. You keep coming back to that word, respect, because it's the foundation of everything else. Love may or may not come, but respect, that we can build deliberately. We returned to Boston as a married couple, settling into Lorenzo's home in Beacon Hill, a historic mansion that had been in the family for generations. It was beautiful but cold. needing a feminine touch it never had. Change whatever you want, Lorenzo said. Make it a home, not just a house. Slowly, I did. And slowly, Lorenzo and I developed a rhythm. He ran businesses, both legitimate and less legitimate. I curated art collections, engaged in charity, established myself as Mrs. Valenti in Boston society. And at night, we dined together, discussed the day, built a partnership that was surprisingly comfortable. 3 months after our wedding, everything changed. It was a charity benefit at the Four Seasons, a black tie event raising funds for a children's hospital. The entire Boston elite was there, including 5 families. Lorenzo and I arrived together, presenting a united front of happy couples. But then I saw him, Franco Ricci, head of the Ricci family, and longtime rival of the Morettis. He was on the other side of the room, surrounded by henchmen, looking directly at me with an expression that made my skin crawl. "Lorenzo," I whispered. "Ricci is here." "I know." Ignoring him. His hand found my waist possessively. "Don't worry. He won't make a scene at public events." But I was wrong. Franco crossed the room, stopping right in front of us. "Valenti. And the new Mrs. Valenti. How domestic." "Ricci." Lorenzo's voice was icy. "I didn't know they invited you." I went. I donated generously after all. Her eyes slid to me. "And I wanted to meet little Catalina Moretti in person. To hear so much about you." "It's Cat Valenti now," I corrected coldly. "Ah, yes, marriage. Clever move, Valenti. Absorbing Morettis through matrimony instead of war. Efficient. Careful, Ricci." Lorenzo's warning was unmistakable. "Or what? Are you going to make a scene here? In front of all of Boston? That wouldn't be very civilized." Franco smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "But since we're being civilized, why not dance? An innocent dance with your rival's fiancé. Show that there are no hard feelings." "No," Lorenzo said immediately. "Lorenzo," I touched his arm. "It's just dancing, in public. What could happen?" I could see war in his eyes. The instinct to refuse versus the need to keep up appearances. Finally, jaw clenched, he nodded once. "One dance, then you leave, Ricci." But when Franco reached out to me, something inside me rebelled. It wasn't about Lorenzo or Franco. It was about control, about allowing men to decide my fate without input, about being passed between them like an object. "No," I said clearly. Both men froze. "Excuse me?" Franco said. I said no. "I'm not going to dance with you, Franco. And it's not because Lorenzo said no. It's because I say no." I turned to Lorenzo, my decision forming. "But I will dance, with my husband." I reached out to Lorenzo, who looked at me in surprise. The music had changed to a slow waltz. The dance floor was moderately crowded, and everyone at the event was now watching our exchange. "Cat," Lorenzo began. "Dance with me," I said. It wasn't a request. It was an order. "Now." "I don't dance. You dance. With me. Now. Or you explain to all of Boston why you publicly reject your own wife while you were willing to let me dance with a rival." I took a step closer, my voice lowering but not losing intensity. "Dance with me now, Lorenzo Valenti. Don't make me lose my patience." The room fell completely silent. 500 people watching, waiting. Lorenzo Valenti was known for never bowing down, for never doing anything he didn't want to do. His refusal would be expected. It would be normal. But slowly, his eyes met mine, and I saw something changing in them. Recognition, perhaps, or respect for the audacity I had shown. Then, incredibly, he reached out his hand. "One dance, Mrs. Valenti, but only because you asked so, directly." I took his hand, letting him guide me to the dance floor. And as his hand found my waist, when we began to move in perfect rhythm despite him claiming not to dance, I whispered, "You know how to dance." My mother insisted on lessons when I was a child. I hated every minute of it. Her eyes never left mine. But now I'm grateful. We danced in silence for an entire minute while everyone watched. Then, so quietly that only I could hear, Lorenzo said, "You surprised me tonight. Good." And it made me realize something. What? That I married a woman, not a girl. A partner, not a subordinate. And that underestimating you would be a fatal mistake. He spun me around. A surprisingly graceful movement. "Thank you for reminding me." When the music ended, he guided me back to the edge of the room. Franco had disappeared, clearly realizing he'd lost whatever game he was playing. And as Lorenzo grabbed 2 champagne glasses and handed me one, I realized something fundamental had changed between us. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was the foundation for something that could become that. For my wife, Lorenzo toasted softly. May she never lose that fire. For my husband, I replied, that he may learn that dancing with me is always a better choice than refusing. We toasted, and the moment glass touched glass, we sealed something, not just a marriage of convenience, but a genuine partnership built on mutual respect and challenge. The following months proved that that night at the ball was a turning point. Lorenzo began including me in business meetings, not all of them, but enough to show he trusted my judgment. I was beginning to understand the complexities of running a criminal empire while maintaining a legitimate front. I didn't approve of everything he did, but I understood the needs behind his decisions. You questioned Dominic's strategy today, Lorenzo observed one evening after a particularly tense meeting with my family, in front of the entire board. Because he was wrong. Expanding into Southern territory before consolidating the North is idiotic. It leaves us vulnerable. I poured wine. I thought that including me meant that my opinion mattered. It matters. That's why I'm mentioning it. He sat down next to me. Kat, you have a knack for this. For politics, strategy, for reading people. It's impressive. I grew up watching my father. I learned even though I didn't want to. I turned to face him. But Lorenzo, if I'm going to be involved, I need more than just occasional briefings. I need to understand the complete structure, operations, risks, everything. It's dangerous. The more you know, the more responsible you become if authorities investigate. So teach me how to stay protected while being informed. Because I'm not going to be a decorative wife who smiles and waves. I'm your partner, remember? Act like one. He studied my face for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right. But Kat, once you're completely in, there's no way out. Understand? I understand. And she did understand. She was choosing this path. Not blindly, like marriage, but deliberately, with her eyes open. Lorenzo kept his promise. Over the next few months, he taught me everything. The structure of the Valenti organization. Alliances and rivalries with other families. Legitimate versus illegitimate operations. How to launder money. How to protect against wiretapping. How to identify rats. It was a masterclass in organized crime taught by one of the best. And I proved to be a capable student. Within 6 months, I was not only consulting but actively participating in decisions, suggesting strategies, identifying risks that Lorenzo had missed, becoming genuinely indispensable. Do you realize you're getting better at this than I am? Lorenzo said one night, after I had identified a potential traitor in our organization, before he could cause real harm. Not better, just a different perspective. I showed him notes I had compiled. You see threats as military, direct, obvious. I see them as diplomats, subtle, hidden beneath courtesy. Complimentary, then. Exactly. I looked at him, realizing something I'd been building up to for months. Lorenzo, we work well together. Yes. Something changed in her expression. Kat, can I ask you something? Always. Do you still resent me? For a forced marriage? For a life I never chose? I considered it carefully. I resent the circumstances that led to this. I resent that I had no real choice. But you? The way you treated me? The respect you showed? The partnership we built? I paused. No, I don't resent you. Well, he moved closer. Because honestly, Kat, these last few months working with you, getting to know you as more than just a wife of convenience, I've been having feelings growing that I didn't expect. My heart raced. What kind of feelings? The kind that makes you not want this to be just a business partnership. The kind that makes you want to kiss her when you smile after winning an argument. The kind that... He touched my face gently. That makes you realize I married you for convenience, but I'm falling in love by choice. Lorenzo, you don't need to reciprocate. I just needed you to know, to understand that you've changed for me, that you're no longer just Mrs. Valenti out of necessity. You're a woman I respect, admire, and deep breath, and love. The tears came unexpectedly. You don't make it easy, you know. Hating you would be much simpler. So you hate me? No. Damn it, no. I pulled him closer. I love you too. I don't know exactly when it happened. Somewhere between dancing at the ball and you confiding in me with family secrets and 1,000 little moments of respect and partnership. But it happened. He kissed me then. Not the chaste kiss of our marriage, but a real, desperate kiss. Years of built-up tension finally releasing. And when we separated, both breathless, Lorenzo whispered, "Bedroom, now." There was no need to ask twice. That night changed everything. Our marriage transformed from convenience to reality, from obligation to choice. And when I woke up the next morning in Lorenzo's arms, I knew that despite an impossible beginning, We had built something genuine. Of course, happiness never lasts forever in our world. 3 months after finally admitting their love, everything almost fell apart. It started with small things: shipments disappearing, information leaking to rivals, money not arriving where it should. Nothing catastrophic individually, but together, they painted a worrying picture. "We have a rat," Lorenzo said during a meeting with his inner circle. "Someone is betraying us." "Or incompetence," suggested Marco, Lorenzo's right-hand man. "No need to be malicious. Competence doesn't result in such a consistent standard. No, this is deliberate." Lorenzo's eyes swept the room, assessing each man present. "And I'm going to find out who." In the following days, Lorenzo increased security. He compartmentalized information. He tested loyalties. And slowly, evidence began to point in an impossible direction. Someone very close to him. "Cat," he came to me one night, his face somber. "I need to tell you something, but it's going to be hard to hear." "The traitor? I think I know who it is. And it is..." He paused. "It's Dominic." The world stopped. "My uncle?" "No. Lorenzo, he may be many things, but a traitor. Evidence points to him." Transactions that only he knew about were compromised. Meetings he attended resulted in ambushes. And I found this. He showed phone records. Regular calls between him and Franco Ricci, starting 2 weeks before his father died. Nausea hit me. "Are you saying Dominic was working with Ricci? That he may have been involved in my father's death?" "I'm saying the evidence suggests this. But Kat, I need your permission. He's your family, your blood. If you want me to back down, just investigate further." "No." My voice came out firmer than I felt. "If Dominic betrayed my father, he betrayed our family, so he faces the consequences. Blood doesn't protect traitors." Lorenzo studied me. "Are you sure? Because once I act, there's no going back. I'm sure. But Lorenzo, I want to be there. When you confront him, I want to hear it from his own mouth. Kat, it's my right. He used me as a pawn in his game, forced me into this marriage because it served his purposes. I deserve the truth." He finally nodded. "All right, but you stay behind me. And at the first sign of danger, Marco will pull you out. Understood?" "Understood." The confrontation took place in a warehouse in the port of Boston, neutral territory far from prying eyes. Lorenzo had summoned Dominic under the pretext of discussing important business. When my uncle arrived, he found not only Lorenzo but 6 armed men, and I, standing in the shadows. "Valenti," Dominic said, suspicion immediately in his voice. "What meeting is this? The kind where we discuss betrayal." Lorenzo crossed his arms. "Specifically yours." "I don't know what you're talking about." "No? Then perhaps this will refresh your memory." Lorenzo nodded to Marco, who projected phone records onto the wall. 53 calls to Franco Ricci in the last 6 months, starting exactly 15 days before Antonio Moretti died. I watched the color drain from Dominic's face. That proves nothing. Not alone. But combined with compromised shipments, leaked information, missing money, all traced back to you, it paints a pretty clear picture. Lorenzo stepped forward. "You sold Moretti's to Ricci. You sold your own brother. Antonio was weak. He refused to expand, to take risks. He was keeping his family stagnant while others grew." Dominic finally exploded, years of resentment spilling over. "I just accelerated the inevitable. You killed him." I emerged from the shadows, my voice trembling with suppressed rage. "Your own brother. My father." Dominic turned, genuine shock on his face when he saw me. "Kat, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly. You were envious, greedy, impatient. So you conspired with Ricci to murder your own blood. And then you had the audacity to use me, to force me into marriage to consolidate power you stole." Tears burned, but I refused to let them fall. "You're worse than the stranger who pulled the trigger. At least he was just following orders. You betrayed family. I saved my family. Antonio would have destroyed us with his shyness." Dominic tried to approach, but Lorenzo's men blocked him. "You destroyed a family. You killed Don. You forced his daughter into a political marriage. You betrayed the trust of everyone who swore loyalty to the Moretti name." I looked at Lorenzo. "What happens to traitors in our world?" "Death. But Kat, since he's your family, the decision is yours. Exile? Imprisonment under our control? Or..." He left it at the end without saying anything. Part of me wanted revenge. I wanted to see Dominic pay with blood for killing my father. But another part, the part my father had raised to be better, chose differently. "Exile," he finally said. "Leave Boston. Tonight. Never come back. Never contact any member of the Moretti or Valenti family. If you do, if we see you again, then death." I paused. "And Dominic, for the rest of your life, live knowing that you betrayed the best man you ever knew, and that even your own niece can't tolerate your existence. Cat, please, go, before you change your mind." I turned away, unable to look at him any longer. I heard him being escorted out. I heard faint protests, then a car engine, then silence, and then my knees buckled. Lorenzo caught me before I fell, holding me as years of pain finally poured out in sobs that shook my whole body. "He killed my father. My own uncle killed my father. I know, my love, I know." Lorenzo held me, letting me cry, offering silent comfort that words could not. When I finally calmed down, Lorenzo took me home, and that night, for the first time since our wedding, he simply held me. No words, no attempts to fix what was broken. Just a solid presence, a reminder that I wasn't alone. The following weeks were difficult, a grieving process not only for my father, but for the betrayal he revealed. But Lorenzo was there, and slowly, we began to rebuild. Not only the Moretti family under new leadership free from betrayal, but our marriage as well, transforming from forced convenience into a chosen partnership in genuine love. "Do you realize that we are completely dysfunctional?" I observed one night, 6 months after my confrontation with Dominic. We were on the terrace of our house, watching Boston glitter below. "Like this? We got married because we had to. We fell in love while running a criminal empire. Our first 'I love you' came after discovering family betrayal. It's not exactly a fairy tale." "No," Lorenzo pulled me into his arms. "It's better this way, because we chose this. We weren't given a happy ending. We built one on an impossible foundation. Do you think it will work? In the long term, I think it's already working, and it will continue as long as we keep choosing each other." He kissed the top of my head. "Cat, you're the strongest woman I know, and every day I thank heaven that your uncles chose me as a bargaining chip, because I gained not just a ring, I gained you." 2 years after our wedding, life had found a new rhythm. The Moretti family thrived under joint leadership, Lorenzo providing muscle, me providing brains. Rivals had learned not to challenge us, and surprisingly, we had begun to legitimize operations, slowly moving into legal business. "It's about thinking about the future," Lorenzo explained when I questioned his strategy. "The world is changing. The law is getting stricter. And when we have children, if we have children, I want to be able to offer them a life without the constant fear of imprisonment." "Children?" Echo, heart pounding. "Eventually, if you want. There's no rush, but..." He touched my face. "I want to build a legacy with you, Kat. Not just a criminal empire, but a real family, a real life. I want that too." And I realized that I did want it. With this man who started out as a stranger, forced upon me but became my partner, my love, my everything. 3 years after getting married, I found out I was pregnant. Lorenzo was simultaneously thrilled and terrified. "I'm going to be a father. How am I going to be a father? I have no idea what I'm doing. Neither of us has it. We'll find out together." I placed his hand on my still flat belly. "Our child, built from the love we chose, we weren't forced. Our daughter, Isabella, was born on a snowy December morning, tiny, perfect, with her father's blue eyes and her mother's dark hair. And the moment Lorenzo held her for the first time, I saw Dangerous Man completely melt away. "Hi, princess," he whispered, tears streaming down his face shamelessly. "I'm your daddy, and I'll protect you from everything. I promise." I watched and I knew. We were complete. Not the path we expected, not the story we would have chosen, but ours. Perfectly, impossibly ours. Epilogue. 10 years later. Autumn arrived in Beacon Hill with golden leaves and a cool air that promised winter was coming. Catalina Valenti was in her garden, watching 3 children play. Isabella, now 10, bossy and protective of younger twins. Marco and Sofia, 6 years old. The result of a love that began as impossible, but blossomed into something extraordinary. Lorenzo appeared behind her, his arms around her. "What are you thinking about? About that night, at the dance, when I forced you to dance with me? You mean when you showed all of Boston that you weren't afraid of me?" He laughed. "Best decision you ever made. Second best. First was deciding to love you even when it would have been easier to hate you. And I decided to earn you." He kissed her neck. "And Kat? I still spend each day trying." 10 years had transformed everything. The Valenti Moretti empire was now almost completely legitimate. Real estate, legal import, export, investments. There were still shadows. There always would be in their world. But Lorenzo kept his promise. He built a legacy that his children could inherit without shame. "Mom! Dad!" Isabella ran to them. "Can I have a birthday party? A big one? With everyone from school?" "Of course, Princess." Lorenzo took her hand. "But no ponies this time. I'm still traumatized from last year." Kat laughed. The memory of the pony running through the house still vivid. This was their life. Chaotic, imperfect, built on an impossible foundation. But it was theirs, and they wouldn't change a thing. That night, after the children were asleep, Lorenzo took Kat to the terrace where it had all begun years before. Soft music played, the same waltz from the ball. "Dance with me?" He held out his hand. "Always." She took it, letting him guide her with familiar steps. As they danced under the Boston stars, Kat reflected on their journey. From a grieving daughter forced into a political marriage, to a powerful woman running an empire alongside the man she loved. It wasn't easy. It wasn't a fairy tale, but it was real, and it was theirs. "No regrets?" Lorenzo asked, a question they asked periodically. "Not one." "And you?" "Just one." When she looked surprised, he smiled. "That I didn't dance with you sooner. It could have saved me months of tension." She laughed, the sound echoing through the night. "Then let's make up for lost time. Dance with me, Lorenzo Valenti. Now and forever. Always, my love, always." And under the starry Boston sky, two impossible couples who built an impossible love continued dancing, living proof that sometimes the most beautiful endings come from the most forced beginnings. That chosen love is stronger than arranged love, and that the only order that truly matters is, dance with me now, and never stop. Snow fell gently on Beacon Hill, transforming Boston into a Victorian postcard. Catalina Moretti Valenti stood at the window of her home office, watching snowflakes dance through the light of the old streetlights. At 55, she had become exactly what she had sworn she would never be, the matriarch of a criminal empire turned legitimate business dynasty. And surprisingly, she was at peace with it. "Mom, you're overthinking it again." Isabella, now 30 and director of operations at Valenti Holdings, came in with a stack of reports. "I can see the gears turning from here. Just reflecting, dear. Your grandfather Moretti would have turned 80 today." Kat tapped on the cold window. 25 years since he died. It feels simultaneously like yesterday and a lifetime ago. Do you still think about him? Every day. And about how he would make me live through this. A forced marriage that became the greatest love of my life. A criminal empire we legitimized together. Children who will never have to make the impossible choices I made. Kat turned to her daughter. "You know he wanted a different life for me. Clean. Safe. Away from all of this. But you chose to stay. You chose Dad. You chose to transform the empire instead of destroying it." Isabella placed reports on the table. "And look what they've built. Valenti Holdings. Completely legitimate. Publicly traded. Employing thousands. The Moretti Valenti Foundation. Donating millions to education and the arts. And 3 children who grew up knowing love, not violence. 2 of your children still know violence." Kat corrected thoughtfully. "You and Marco worked security when the transition was happening. You saw things, but we didn't perpetrate it. There's a difference." Isabella sat down. "Mom, you and Dad broke the cycle. You transformed something rotten into something good. That's legacy." A knock on the door interrupted. Lorenzo entered, now 62 but still striking. Silver hair at the temples, lines around his eyes from decades of laughter, but the same intense blue eyes. "My women plotting without me? Just a discussion about legacy." Kat smiled as he kissed her temple. "And how our impossible path led us here. 25 years of marriage, 20 years since our last illegal operation, 15 since we became completely legitimate." Lorenzo sat back in his familiar, comfortable armrest. "And each year better than the last. Do you ever have any regrets? From the early years before me? Just because I didn't know you before. Because I hadn't started this transformation sooner." Her hand found his, fingers intertwining automatically. "But Kat, without those years, without that foundation, we wouldn't have had the resources to do what we did. So maybe everything was necessary." "Dad, Mom." Marco Jr., now 28 and Vice President of Development, appeared in the doorway. "Family meeting in 10 minutes. Grandpa is getting impatient." "Grandpa is always impatient," Lorenzo grumbled, but he was smiling. His father, Don Valenti Sr., at 88, was still a formidable presence at family gatherings. The family gathered in the dining room, a vast space that had once been the setting for criminal business meetings, but now hosted Sunday dinners. Don Valenti Sr. presided at the head of the table, the retired patriarch observing the empire his son had transformed. Beside him was his wife, Francesca, 85, still sharp as a tack. "Finally," old Don grumbled as they all sat down. "I thought I'd have to die waiting for you to start." "Dad," Lorenzo warned, but without any real severity. "No, he's right." Sophia, the youngest at 24 and an art history teacher, laughed. "We're always late." Dinner was chaotic as always. 3 generations talking about another, heated debates about politics and business, laughter echoing through hallways that once saw only tension, and Kat, observing it all, felt overwhelming gratitude. "You did this," Lorenzo whispered in her ear. "You transformed a cold house into a warm home. We did this. Together." After dinner, when the family had dispersed and the children had gone about their own lives, Kat and Lorenzo met in their favorite place, the private library she had curated over 25 years. Walls lined with first editions, original Renaissance art, mementos of a life built together. "Can I ask you something?" Lorenzo said, pouring brandy for them both. "Something I've been thinking about for years but never asked. Always. If I could go back. That night when Dominic told you to marry me. If I knew everything that was coming. Betrayal, violence, transformation, everything. Would I still accept?" Kat considered it carefully. It wasn't an easy question to answer. "Honestly, I don't know. That Catalina, young and grieving and scared. She might have made a different choice if she had known the full cost." Lorenzo flinched slightly. "I understand. But this Catalina," Kat took her hand. "This one who has known you for 25 years, who built a life and family and legacy with you, she would accept it in a heartbeat. Because Lorenzo, however impossible it started, however difficult it was, we became something extraordinary together. Do you really believe that? Look around." She gestured toward the library, then toward the direction where the family had gathered. 3 children who adore each other and us. A legitimate business that employs thousands. A foundation that has changed countless lives. And love. God. So much love where there used to be only obligation. Tears glistened. "Yes, I believe. I would choose you every time." Lorenzo pulled her into his arms, holding her as he had done 1,000 times before. 25 years and you still make me want to be a better man. You're a better man. You've completely transformed. For you. Always for you. They stayed like that for a long time. 2 impossible couples who had built a possible from a broken foundation. Finally, Kat stepped back slightly. "Lorenzo, there's something I need to tell you. About Dominic." His body tensed. "What about him?" "He died 3 months ago. In Miami, under a false name. Cancer." Deep breath. "His lawyer contacted me. There was a letter. For me. Did you read it?" "Yes, and it was complex." He apologized. He explained. Not forgave, but explained. The envy that consumed him. How my father's love for me made him feel inadequate. How resentment grew until an opportunity presented itself, and he seized it. Tears flowed freely now. "And Lorenzo, part of me hates that I understood. I haven't forgiven. I never will. But I understood. You didn't tell me when it happened. I needed to process it alone first. Decide how I felt." She wiped away tears. "And I felt relief that he was dead, that the threat had passed, but also sadness for the man he could have been if he hadn't let darkness consume him." Lorenzo cupped her face. "You're the most compassionate person I know. Even after everything he's done, you still find empathy." "Not empathy, just an understanding that people are complex, that circumstances shape choices, that," she paused, "that without you, without our partnership, I could have become bitter too. You saved me as much as I saved you. We saved each other," he corrected, "and we will continue to save each other." That night, lying in the bed they had shared for a quarter of a century, Kat couldn't sleep. Her mind wandered through the years, her father's funeral, the forced marriage proposal, her first meeting with Lorenzo, the ball where everything changed, the discovery about Dominic, the births of each child, the slow transformation of the empire, 1,000 small moments that built their lives. "You're awake," Lorenzo said in the darkness, "thinking about the journey, how far we've come, regretful, not for a second." She turned to face him, though she could only see his outline in the darkness. "Lorenzo Valenti, You were the best thing I never chose but always loved. And Catalina Moretti Valenti, you transformed obligation into devotion, duty into desire, arranged marriage into a generational romance. He kissed her gently. I love you more today than yesterday, and more tomorrow than today. Always, always, until the stars burn. And in the darkness of a Boston bedroom, two impossible couples fell asleep intertwined, living proof that chosen love surpasses arranged love, that respect grows into passion, that sometimes the most beautiful endings come from the most forced beginnings, because it's not where love begins that defines it, but where it chooses to grow. And Catalina and Lorenzo chose to grow together, through betrayal and violence, through transformation and redemption, through 25 years of daily choices to keep loving when it would have been easier to stop. This was their legacy, not the empire they legitimized or the fortune they built, but the impossible love they made possible, and 3 children who would never have to choose between duty and desire, because their parents had already made impossible choices for them. In the morning, Kat woke up to find Lorenzo already dressed, standing at the window. What are you doing? Watching the snow, thinking about how lucky we are. Against all odds, Kat, we're lucky. She joined him, wrapping her arms around his waist. Not luck, choice. We've chosen this every day for 25 years. Then let's choose 25 more, and even more after that. Until death, and beyond if there's a way. They stood there, watching Boston awaken beneath a white blanket. 2 survivors who had transformed trauma into triumph, obligation into devotion. And they knew, with the certainty of a quarter-century spent together, that their story, impossible and imperfect and utterly beautiful, would be told by generations to come, not as a cautionary tale about forced marriages, but as a testament to the power of choice, of respect growing into love, of 2 people refusing to let circumstances define their destiny, because in the end, Catalina and Lorenzo proved not only that arranged marriages can work, they proved that when 2 people choose each other repeatedly, when they build respect into love and obligation into devotion, they can create something that transcends the circumstances that brought them together. And that truth, forged in a Boston ballroom and sealed with 25 years of daily choices, was the only one that truly mattered. Thank you for listening to me until the end, dear souls. If this story touched your heart, subscribe and turn on notifications. Comment. Do you believe that love can grow from arranged marriages? That respect is a better foundation than passion? Until the next story, continue believing in the power of choosing love, even when the initial choice was stolen. A big hug from someone who believes that everyone deserves a second chance at happiness.